Mentioned this new report in the Washington Post that reveals that Trump's political group spent more than $40 million on legal costs in the first half of this year to defend Trump, his advisors, and some others. What's more, Trump's Save America PAC is financing legal work that is now raising questions from prosecutors about potential conflicts of interest. That's according to people familiar with the matter. Trump advisors told the Post that the PAC, which raises most of its money from small dollar contributions, is footing the legal bills for almost anyone drawn into the numerous Trump investigations who requests help from the former president and his advisors. And joining us now to talk about it is one of the co-authors of this brand new piece of reporting, the Washington Post's Devlin Barrett. He covers national security and law enforcement for the paper. Devlin, it's great to see you. Please explain the potential issue here with the representation of the two who have been charged in the documents case. We just mentioned them, valet Walt Nauta and the property manager there, Carlos de Oliveira, and the IT worker who looks to have provided information to prosecutors.
Right. So it's not unusual for an employer to pay for the legal costs of an employee who ends up getting involved in an investigation. But what's so interesting and frankly potentially important about the Trump situation is when you look at these witnesses, when you look at these Trump employees, what you're seeing is a kind of high stakes game of chicken where when prosecutors come to suspect that a person is being more loyal to Trump than the truth, then they start pressing them. And in some cases, they can essentially bring them over to being a witness. That's what you see happening in Yuscil Taveras' case. That's part of the reason why you see a superseding indictment. In the case of Carlos de Oliveira, in the case of Walt Nauta, they pressed them both. They engaged in this sort of high stakes game of chicken with prosecutors, and ultimately they were charged.
Here, slightly off topic, but on the same general thrust. This story about the $40 million that the PAC spent on legal fees. One of the questions that I've had, which, I guess I would love for your insights into, is why did they do it through the PAC as opposed to setting up an entirely separate legal entity, which the Times is now reporting they're doing, just a legal defense fund to cover this? Why go through a political entity like the PAC raising money that should ostensibly be for political purposes or an election, as opposed to doing something that was strictly for legal purposes, like a legal defense fund?
Sure. So it's long been the case that political entities are allowed to pay the legal costs of the candidate or the campaign. And that's been true for decades. And people have raised this question and had this concern for a long time. But I think the simplest answer to your question is that it's just easier. If you know your campaign is raising a lot of money, if you know that that campaign or PAC is allowed to spend money on legal costs, for a lot of campaigns and a lot of politicians, the answer is, well, why not do it? It's a simpler way to both raise money and spend it.